the last slave left in the cage. The market was full of noise. People shouted prices, slaves cried, chains clanked. The smell was bad, like sweat, blood, and fear. It was a place no one wanted to visit unless they were cruel or desperate. Every cage in the long row was empty now. All the slaves had been sold. Some buyers laughed as they walked away with strong, healthy workers. Others took girls with smooth skin and empty eyes. Everyone had found what they came for. But at the very end of the market, one cage still had a slave in it. She was small. Her skin was dirty, covered in bruises and cuts. Her arms were too thin, her legs shaky. Her hair was a mess and her eyes looked tired. Her name was not known. The traders had simply written "worthless" on the tag outside her cage. Buyers had come to her cage, looked once, and then turned away with disgust. "Too broken," they said. "No use, can't work, not even pretty." She had stopped hoping long ago. Each day she sat silently and waited. Maybe for death. Maybe for nothing. Her heart did not beat with dreams anymore. Then one day, a strange man walked into the market. He was human. He didn't look rich or important. He wore a simple jacket and walked slowly, his eyes scanning every cage with a quiet, serious look. The traders didn't pay much attention to him. He looked like he wouldn't buy much, but then he reached the last cage. He stopped, and he stared. The girl in the cage lifted her head just a little. No one had ever stood still in front of her cage for this long. She was used to quick glances and cruel words, but this human didn't say anything. He simply looked at her. There was no disgust in his eyes, no anger, only sadness. The human turned to the trader standing nearby. "What about this one?" he asked. The trader laughed. "That one? She's trash. You don't want her? She's not even worth 1 coin. "I'll take her," the human said. The trader laughed louder. "Take her for free then. She's a waste of space." The human still pulled out a coin and placed it on the table. "She's not trash," he said. He walked to the cage and opened the door. The girl didn't move. She thought maybe it was a trick, a game, a cruel joke. But then the man knelt down and held out his hand. She looked at the hand. It was clean, strong, kind. She looked at his face again. His eyes were soft. He was serious. He wasn't lying. Slowly, very slowly, she moved. Her legs shook, but she stood. She reached out, touched his hand, and felt warmth. Real warmth. She had forgotten how it felt. The man helped her walk. People stared. Some laughed, some whispered. "He took that one?" "Why?" "Must be mad. She won't last a week." But the man didn't care. He didn't look back. He just held her hand gently and walked with her through the crowd. She kept looking at him. She didn't know why he helped her. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where they were going. But something inside her, the part that wasn't dead, started to feel something. It was small. It was weak. But it was real. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't over. Maybe the human wasn't like the others. Maybe he saw something in her no one else had ever seen. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel worthless. She felt like a person. She walked beside him, silent but no longer afraid. And the market, with all its noise, all its pain, and all its cruelty, faded behind them, just like a nightmare ending at dawn. He paid for trash, but walked away with gold. People laughed behind them as the human walked away from the market. Whispers followed him. Some thought he was crazy. Others thought it was a joke. Why would a human buy the weakest, most broken slave in the market? But the man didn't care. He didn't look back once. His steps were calm, his grip gentle. The girl walked beside him, still silent. Her legs were tired and her body ached, but his presence made her feel strangely safe. She didn't understand it, but she didn't want to let go of his hand. When they reached the small transport ship parked nearby, she stopped. Her eyes widened. She had never been inside a ship like that. Clean, warm, and quiet. No cages, no chains, no guards. Just peace. He looked at her and opened the door. "It's okay. Come in." She stepped inside slowly, her heart beating fast. Was this still real? She had been kicked, beaten, caged, and now she was being invited to sit? He gave her a soft blanket and a cup of warm water. She held it in both hands like it was treasure. Her fingers trembled. The human sat across from her, not too close, not too far. He didn't ask questions, he didn't stare. He just watched quietly like he was waiting. Finally, she looked at him and whispered, "Why?" His eyebrows raised gently. "Why what?" "Why, me?" He smiled, but not in a mocking way. "Because no one else did." She looked down. His words confused her. No one had ever picked her for anything good. She was always the leftover, the useless, the unwanted. "I don't have a name," she said after a long pause. The man nodded. "Then let's change that." She blinked. "Change what?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Luma. I'll call you Luma." Luma. The name sounded soft, new. She said it in her mind over and over. It was hers now. Not given by a traitor, not written on a cage. A name, from someone who saw her. He stood up. "Let me get something for you to eat." She watched him move around the ship, preparing a small meal. The smell made her stomach twist, not from pain but from hunger. Real food, not moldy scraps, not dirty water. Real food made for her. He placed the plate in front of her and stepped back. She looked at it, unsure. Was it a test? Would he hit her if she ate too slow? "Go ahead," he said kindly. "Take your time." She picked up a spoon, her hands shaking. She took one bite, and her eyes filled with tears. Warm, soft, delicious. Her chest hurt from the feeling rising inside her. She ate slowly, carefully, not because of fear, but because she wanted to enjoy it. He didn't speak. He let her eat in peace. When she was done, she sat quietly, not knowing what to say. "You're safe now," he said softly. "No one will hurt you here." She nodded slowly, not fully believing yet, but hoping it could be true. "Where are we going?" she asked after a while. "My home," he answered. "It's quiet, far from this kind of place." "Am I free?" The question was heavy. He looked her in the eyes and said, "You're not a slave anymore. You're a person, Luma." She closed her eyes. That word, person, meant more than anything. She had been called property, beast, waste, never person. Luma didn't speak after that. She curled under the blanket and lay still. The man didn't disturb her. He simply sat down and piloted the ship, letting her rest. And for the first time in a long, long time, she slept without fear. Somewhere deep inside, a broken heart started to heal. A girl once called worthless was now Luma, and the human who had paid for her wasn't a master. He was something she had never known, a protector. From a number to a name, from a cage to a home, Luma woke up slowly. Her body didn't hurt. She wasn't lying on cold metal or hard stone. She was wrapped in something warm and soft. For a few seconds, she thought she was dreaming. Then she opened her eyes and saw the human sitting nearby, drinking something from a cup. The ship hummed gently. No chains, no yelling, no fear. He noticed her waking and gave a small smile. "Sleep okay?" Luma nodded slowly. She wasn't used to being asked. She wasn't used to anyone caring. The human stood and walked toward her, with a fresh piece of bread. "You're safe now," he repeated, like it was something he wanted her to believe deep in her bones. She took the bread and ate slowly. She had never eaten so much in her life. Her stomach wasn't used to feeling full, but even more strange was the silence, no cries, no orders, just peace. "What is your name?" she asked him. He blinked, then smiled. "Daniel." She whispered it to herself. "Daniel." The name felt real, strong, like him. Daniel sat down again and pulled out something from a small bag. It was a clean dress, simple but soft and new. He handed it to her without looking at her directly. "This is for you. You don't have to wear rags anymore." Luma took it slowly, her fingers brushing the fabric. She had worn the same torn clothes for years. She didn't even know what comfort felt like. This dress, it felt like a gift. After she changed, she looked at herself in a small mirror. She barely recognized the girl looking back, still thin, still scarred. But something was different now. She had a name, she had clean clothes. She had Daniel. When they landed on his planet, she was surprised. It wasn't crowded or loud like the markets. There were trees, clean air, a soft wind, and silence. Beautiful silence. His home was small but warm. It had a bed just for her. A table with 2 chairs, books, pictures, everything felt alive. Not dead like the cages she came from. "You live here alone?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Used to. Not anymore." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked at her gently. "Now you live here too. This is your home." Luma stared at him. The word home shook her heart. She had lived in boxes, cages, and floors, but never in a home. Could this really be hers? She walked through the room slowly. Her fingers touched the walls, the chairs, the shelves. It was all real. Later that evening, she sat at the table while Daniel cooked. The smell of hot soup filled the room. She didn't say much, but her eyes followed him carefully. Every small act of kindness felt like a miracle. "Daniel," she said quietly. "Yes? Why, are you being so kind?" He stopped for a moment, then said, "Because someone once helped me when I was lost. Now it's my turn to help someone else." She didn't ask more. She just nodded. Maybe she didn't understand it fully, but she wanted to. After dinner, Daniel placed a soft pillow and blanket on her bed. "If you need anything," he said. "My room is next door." She nodded and lay down. The pillow felt like a cloud. Her eyes grew heavy. Just before sleep took her, she whispered something. "Thank you for giving me a name." Daniel didn't answer, but outside her door he smiled. That night, Luma didn't dream of chains or pain. She dreamed of trees, of warmth, and of a hand reaching out to hers. She wasn't a number anymore, not a thing to be sold or ignored. She was Luma, and Luma finally had a home. They took her voice, but not her will to survive. Luma was learning how to breathe again. Each day she helped Daniel with small tasks, watering plants, sweeping the porch, learning how to cook simple meals. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her voice was a little stronger than the day before. Her eyes were still tired, but they no longer looked empty. The shadows in her heart hadn't disappeared, but something warm was slowly pushing them away. Daniel didn't ask questions about her past. He waited. He gave her space. And that silence was the greatest gift. But silence couldn't hide her nightmares. Some nights, Luma woke up shaking. Her body curled tight, her hands over her ears, tears running down her face. Daniel would hear her and sit by the door, never entering unless she asked. He never forced her to talk. He just whispered, "You're safe now. No one can hurt you here." One night she finally whispered back, "They took everything from me." Daniel didn't move. "They burned my village, sold my mother, took my brother. I was just a child. They said I was weak, not even worth training." She paused. "So they caged me, treated me like an object. I forgot how to speak, forgot how to cry." Daniel listened. His hands were still, his eyes closed. "I used to hate everyone. But then you came." She didn't say more. She didn't need to. For her, saying that much was like shouting to the stars. The next morning she felt lighter. Not healed, but not completely broken anymore. But the past doesn't let go so easily. A week later, they went to a small market for supplies. Luma wore a scarf to hide her face. Still, She stayed close to Daniel, her steps quiet. She wasn't ready for loud places yet. While Daniel picked fruit, a loud voice suddenly rang out behind them. "Hey, that girl. She looks familiar." Luma froze. She turned her head slightly and saw him, a slaver from the market. One of the men who had once thrown food at her cage and laughed when she cried. He stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "That's her. The little worm no one would buy. What's she doing here, free?" Luma couldn't move. Daniel stepped between them calmly. "She's with me." The slaver laughed. "So the stories are true. The human bought trash. What a joke. You better watch your back. She's stolen property." "She's no one's property," Daniel said, his voice firm. The slaver spat on the ground. "She has value now. I hear rumors. People say she's strange, that machines respond to her touch, that she's not normal. That kind of thing belongs to the state." Luma's heart sank. Not again. She had just started to feel human again, and now they wanted to take it all away. Daniel pulled her close. "We're done here." They walked away, ignoring the slaver's shouts. Back at the house, Luma sat in silence. "They'll come for me," she said quietly. "I heard what he said. They'll want to sell me again, or study me, or lock me in a lab." Daniel knelt in front of her. "They can try, but I'm not strong," she whispered. "You don't need to be strong alone," he said. "You have me." That night, Daniel locked every door and window. He stayed awake, just in case. But Luma didn't cry this time. She sat by the window and looked at the stars, her heart full of fear, but also full of fire. They had taken her voice, her family, her childhood, but they had not taken her soul, and they would never take her freedom again, not while Daniel stood beside her. She didn't know how or when, but deep inside, Luma made a silent promise. If they came for her again, this time she would fight back. The girl they called Broken held the power to shatter worlds. It started with a small light. Luma was cleaning the table one morning when the lamp above her flickered. She looked up. Daniel hadn't touched it. Oh, power was fine, but the lamp stayed glowing softly even after she turned it off. She stepped back, confused. When she moved her hand closer again, the lamp glowed brighter. Daniel noticed. "Try again," he said gently. Luma slowly reached out. The moment her fingers touched the edge of the wooden table, the lamp lit up fully. She stepped away, frightened. "What's happening?" Daniel looked thoughtful, not scared. "I think it's you." "Me?" "You've always had something inside you. Maybe it just needed time to wake up." Luma shook her head. "I'm not special. You're alive. When others didn't want you to be. That alone makes you special." The next few days, more strange things began to happen. The garden plants grew faster when she touched the soil. A broken music player started working again after she held it for a minute. Even the wind around the house seemed to follow her steps. Luma didn't understand. But she started to feel something deep inside, like energy had been sleeping inside her body, waiting. Daniel began teaching her how to stay calm when the strange effects happened. "It's like breath," he explained. "You don't force it, you let it flow." One evening, as the sun went down, Daniel brought out a small metal ball. "Try this," he said. "What is it?" "It's just a toy, but it reacts to bioenergy." Luma touched it lightly. The ball began to rise. Gasped. It floated higher and spun slowly, glowing faintly with blue light. "I can't. This isn't possible," she whispered. "You're doing it." The ball suddenly stopped midair, then dropped. Luma backed away. "What if I hurt someone?" Daniel looked at her. "You didn't hurt me when I opened your cage, and I don't think you ever will." His words stayed in her heart, but the world outside wasn't as gentle. Rumors began to spread. Traders whispered about a girl who could grow food with a touch, a girl who made machines obey, a slave that had become more than just a survivor, and news traveled fast. One night, Daniel was fixing part of the fence while Luma watered the plants. Suddenly she froze. Her skin prickled. The air felt wrong. A small drone flew over their house. Daniel looked up. They found us. Luma's hands tightened. They'll try to take you. Let them try, she whispered. She walked to the middle of the field. The drone circled her like a vulture. It scanned her body, reading her energy. It beeped loudly, sending out signals to a nearby ship. Luma closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. The ground under her feet trembled softly. The plants around her grew rapidly, her hands lit with a quiet glow. The drone tried to fly closer, then suddenly sparked and fell, broken. Daniel ran to her side. Are you okay? She opened her eyes. I didn't mean to destroy it, Daniel smiled. But you did. And that means you can defend yourself. Luma looked at the broken pieces of metal. For the first time, she didn't feel weak. She felt powerful. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. If they sent a drone now, what would they send next? She wasn't ready to run. She was ready to rise, and the galaxy would soon learn. The girl they left behind was no longer silent, no longer caged and no longer powerless. She was something new, and she was no longer alone. They sent soldiers for a slave, but found a storm instead. They came at dawn, no warning, no message, just ships, 3 of them, dark, heavy, and silent, as they landed on the edge of the quiet forest where Daniel and Luma lived. The trees shook from the force. Birds flew away in panic. Animals ran from the thunder in the sky. Luma stood at the window, her hands gripping the frame. She didn't cry. She didn't hide. She had seen ships like these before, but back then she was behind bars. Now she was free. Daniel stood beside her, calm but alert. It's the government, he said. They want you. They can't have me, Luma said softly, her voice clear and steady. Outside, soldiers in black armor stepped from the ships. They carried energy rifles and shields. The lead officer, a tall alien with silver skin, held a datapad in one hand. His voice echoed through a loudspeaker. Step outside. Surrender the girl known as Luma. She is state property under Code 419. Resistance will be punished. Daniel didn't move. Luma looked at him and he nodded once. You don't have to fight, he said. But you don't have to run either. Luma took a deep breath and opened the door. She walked outside barefoot. On the grass, her head held high. The wind moved around her like it knew her name. The soldiers raised their weapons. She must come with us, the officer barked. Her abilities have been recorded. She is dangerous. No, Daniel said. She is not dangerous. You are. The officer frowned. This is your last warning. Luma raised her hand. You want to take me? She said. Then look at me. She stepped forward. The energy around her body began to glow, soft but bright. The grass under her feet turned green. The air buzzed. The machines on the soldiers' belts flickered. Power like hers cannot go. Unstudied, the officer shouted. She belongs in a lab. Luma's eyes narrowed. I don't belong to anyone. The soldiers moved in, one fired. The energy blast shot forward, fast, burning. But it never reached her. Luma raised her hand. The blast froze midair, hung there, buzzed like trapped lightning. With a flick of her fingers, she sent it flying back, straight into the sky. It exploded like fireworks. The soldiers hesitated. Luma stepped forward again. The wind roared louder. Her body glowed brighter. You caged me once, she said. You sold me like meat. You laughed when I cried. But I am not that girl anymore. One of the soldiers dropped his weapon. Another took a step back. The officer shouted, Restrain her! But no one moved. Daniel stepped beside Luma and placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to destroy them, he said. I don't want to, she replied, but I won't be taken again. The machines in the soldiers' armor began to spark. The ground shook. The trees leaned. The air bent around Luma like it answered to her. Finally, the officer growled, Fall back! The soldiers retreated toward their ships one by one. None dared turn their backs. They boarded quickly, afraid, confused, and defeated. The ships rose, engines blazing, and disappeared into the sky. Silence returned. Luma stood still for a moment, breathing slowly, her body dimming. Daniel looked at her. "You didn't hurt them." "I didn't have to," she said. "They were already afraid." He smiled. "You just changed everything." "No," Luma replied. "I just began." She looked at the sky where the ships vanished. They had sent soldiers for a broken slave, but they found something else entirely, and this time the girl who once sat in a cage had made the whole world stand still. The slave they abandoned became the name they now feared. Word spread like fire. Across cities, planets, and star stations, whispers filled the air. About a girl once called worthless, a slave no one wanted, who had made soldiers flee without lifting a weapon. They said she controlled the wind, that machines bowed to her touch, that a simple human had bought her, not to use but to save, and now the galaxy wanted to know her name. Luma. Once that name meant nothing. Now it made rulers pause, it made armies think twice, and it made the powerful afraid. Back in the quiet home Daniel built, Luma sat under the tree she had helped grow. Its flowers bloomed in impossible colors. Birds nested in its high branches as if they too trusted her. Daniel brought her tea and sat beside her. His smile was calm, but his eyes showed pride. "They won't stop talking about you," he said. Luma looked down. "They talked about me before too, but they used to call me trash. Not anymore." She nodded, thinking. "I didn't want to be known for power." "You're not," Daniel said. "You're known for surviving what no one else could." She was quiet for a while, then said, "I want to help others. Like me. Slaves, children, the ones still trapped in cages." Daniel leaned back against the tree. "Then that's what we'll do." Over the next few weeks, things began to change. Strangers came, carefully, respectfully. A mother with a sick child. A lost boy who had escaped a camp. A broken old man who carried chains still around his wrists. All of them came not for help, but for hope. And Luma gave it. She never called herself a leader. But people began to follow. She never built an army. But protectors gathered. Even some of the soldiers who once came for her returned, without weapons this time. They brought news, shared secrets, and asked only one thing. "Can we stand with you?" And so the girl who had no name, no voice, and no place built something greater than power. She built trust. She built family. She built change. One night, Daniel found her standing in the garden, staring at the stars. "You're thinking about them," he said. Luma nodded. "The one still behind bars. The one still waiting like I once did. Alone. Scared. Silent." Daniel waited. "I want to go to them," she said. "Not just talk. I want to break every cage." He smiled. "Then I'll fly you there." And so they began. Planet by planet, camp by camp, they arrived. Not with war, not with fire, but with light, with truth, with the story of a girl who had nothing, and still found the strength to rise. And everywhere she went, the cages fell. Some leaders tried to stop her. They failed. Some tried to buy her. She laughed. Some tried to silence her. But they forgot. She had already lived in silence. Now she spoke for millions. Years later, historians would argue if her power was science or something more. But the people she touched never cared. To them, she was the girl who proved that the most unwanted soul could shake the stars. They called her the flame of the forgotten, but Daniel still called her Luma. And every night, when the winds carried her name, he remembered the day he bought a slave no one wanted and walked away with the future in his hands.